We all know what it feels like to put things off, even things we care about. Maybe you found yourself staring at a blank screen, a messy room, or a long to-do list, wanting to get started but somehow unable to move. If you've ever wondered why it's so hard to begin, or blamed yourself for being lazy or undisciplined, you're not alone, and you're not broken. In fact, your brain is working exactly as it was designed, to avoid effort and save energy for emergencies. The trouble is that ancient instinct gets in the way of modern life. We need to do hard things, not just once, but again and again, to build the lives we want. But waiting until we feel like it almost never works. Days, weeks, even years can slip by as we hope for a spark of motivation that just doesn't come. Do It Anyway: How to Trick Your Brain into Craving Doing Hard Things is a guide for anyone who's tired of waiting. Inside, you'll find a step-by-step plan to make starting easier, even when you don't feel motivated. You'll learn how to take the first step when you want to hesitate, how to turn uncomfortable feelings into signs you're on the right track, and how to build small habits that add up to big change. You'll discover how to set up your environment so it nudges you forward, and how to reward yourself so your brain actually starts to enjoy effort. Most importantly, you'll gather real proof, one small win at a time, that you're someone who can do hard things. This book isn't about pushing yourself harder or waiting for willpower to magically appear. It's about understanding how your mind works and using that knowledge to move forward, even on tough days. By the end, you'll see that taking action isn't about being perfect or never slipping up. It's about learning how to start over and over until it feels like second nature. If you've ever felt stuck or frustrated with yourself, this book is for you. You don't have to wait for motivation. You just need a way to begin. Let's get started right now with the very first step. Chapter 1: The Switch. You are not lazy. You are not broken. You are biologically engineered to fail at modern life. Right now, there is a task you know you should do. It is sitting there, staring at you, demanding your attention. You know exactly what the first step is. You know that completing it will bring you relief, progress, and profit. Yet, you are not doing it. You are scrolling. You are cleaning a desk that is already clean. You are waiting for a feeling that never arrives. You are stuck in a paralysis that feels like a moral failing, but it is actually a survival mechanism gone wrong. Your brain has a primary directive, and it is not to write a bestseller, launch a business, or get an A on your final exam. Its primary directive is to keep you alive and conserve energy. For your ancestors, calorie expenditure was a risk. Uncertainty was a hazard. Effort was expensive. If you spent energy on something that didn't yield an immediate return, you might starve. If you ventured into the unknown, you might be eaten. So, your nervous system evolved a very efficient safety brake. It treats hard things like hazards. When you think about sitting down to do deep work, your brain does not see an opportunity for growth. It sees a threat. It flags the effort as an energy leak. It triggers a subtle chemical cocktail of hesitation and discomfort designed to make you stop. This is the effort avoidance bias. It is the default setting of the human mind. The moment you consider doing something difficult, your internal operating system screams at you to conserve resources and seek comfort. This is the problem. You are trying to run high-performance software on hardware designed for the Stone Age. You are waiting to feel like working, but your biology is wired to make sure you never feel like working. If you wait until you feel ready, you will wait forever. The feeling of readiness is a lie. It is a mirage on the horizon that retreats every time you take a step toward it. Winners understand this. Losers are deceived by it. The wait to feel ready trap. The greatest lie you have ever been told is that you need to be motivated to take action. You have been conditioned to believe that the sequence of success is inspiration, then motivation, then action. You wait for the lightning bolt. You wait for the mood to strike. You wait for the stars to align so that the work feels effortless. This model is backward. It is a trap that keeps you frozen in potential, never crossing the bridge into reality. The truth is that feelings lag behind actions. The nervous system does not change its state based on your thoughts. It changes its state based on your movements. You cannot think your way into a new way of acting, but you can act your way into a new way of feeling. Motivation is not the cause of action. Motivation is the result of action. When you hesitate, you send a signal to your brain that the task is indeed dangerous. You validate the fear. The longer you stand on the edge of the diving board, the higher the water looks. The longer you stare at the blank page, the heavier the cursor blinks. This is the hesitation gap. In that silence between intention and action, your brain fills the void with excuses. It rationalizes your delay. It tells you that you need more research, or that you are too tired, or that you will do it better tomorrow. Winners do not have a better brain than you. They do not have more willpower. They simply have a different relationship with the gap. They act to change their state. They know that the first 3 seconds are the battleground. If they can move before the brain has time to negotiate, they win. If they wait for the feeling, they lose. You must stop waiting for permission from your emotions. You must learn to flip the switch manually. The silent decay of potential. If you do not solve this, the cost is not just a messy to-do list. The cost is the slow, agonizing erosion of your soul. Chronic avoidance is a spiral. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you withdraw equity from your self-trust account. You teach your brain that your word means nothing. You teach yourself that when things get hard, you fold. This creates an identity of unreliability. You begin to downscale your goals to match your shrinking confidence. You stop dreaming of the corner office or the finished novel because you know deep down that you won't do the work to get there. This is the tragedy of the almost person. The person who almost started the company. The person who almost got in shape. The person who almost finished the degree. Regret does not come from the things we tried and failed at. It comes from the things we never tried at all because we were too busy waiting to feel safe. The opportunity cost is staggering. While you are negotiating with your feelings, someone else is doing the work. Someone with half your talent and twice your speed is taking the market share, the accolades, and the life that was supposed to be yours. They are not smarter than you. They just didn't wait. They learned to override the safety brake. They learned to do it anyway. The compounding loop of action. But there is another path. It is the path of the switch. Imagine a life where hard work feels natural. Imagine a day where you sit down, feel the resistance, and move through it as easily as walking through a doorway. This is not a fantasy. It is a neurological possibility. When you learn to override the hesitation, you trigger a compounding momentum loop. It starts with a reframe. You stop seeing discomfort as a stop sign and start seeing it as the price of admission. You act fast, bypassing the brain's threat detection. You engage in the work. And then, something magical happens. You make progress. Progress is the most powerful neurochemical trigger we have. When you see yourself moving forward, your brain releases dopamine. But this isn't the cheap dopamine of social media likes. This is the robust, enduring dopamine of competence. You feel good because you did something hard. You reward that effort immediately, reinforcing the loop. Over time, this creates automaticity. The things that require heroic willpower today will require almost zero effort tomorrow. Your environment will carry the load. Your habits will run on autopilot. You will wake up and start working not because you forced yourself, but because that is simply what you do. This leads to the ultimate shift, a change in identity. You stop being a person who struggles to start. You become a finisher. You become the person who ships. When this identity locks in, the war is over. You no longer have to negotiate with yourself because you know who you are. You are the person who gets it done. The architecture of the switch. This book is not a collection of motivational quotes. It is an engineering manual for your mind. We are going to dismantle the mechanisms of hesitation and replace them with a system of relentless execution. We are going to trick your brain into craving the hard things it currently fears. We will do this by pulling specific levers in a specific order. First, we must address the mindset. You cannot outwork a brain that thinks it is in danger. We will learn to reframe discomfort using the techniques in the chapter on rewiring resistance. We will turn the pain of effort into a signal to begin. Second, we must master motion. You will learn the art of the 3-second activation. We will explore the strategies in the chapter on first seconds to collapse the gap between thought and deed. You will learn to move before your limbic system wakes up. Third, we will build reliability. Willpower is a battery that runs out. Systems are a power grid that stays on. We will use the concepts from action loops to script your behavior so you never have to wonder what to do next. Fourth, we will make it sticky. We will use the principles of tiny momentum to lower the floor of effort so low that you cannot say no. We will use reward design to couple hard work with immediate pleasure, hacking your brain's reward prediction error to generate craving. Finally, we will lock it in. We will shape the environment so that the right choice is the only choice, and we will solidify your new self-image with the strategies in Identity Lock. This order matters. Mindset provides the permission, motion provides the start, systems provide the consistency, rewards provide the addiction, identity provides the permanence. Your new baseline. By the time you finish your first pass through this book, your life will look different. We are not aiming for perfection. We are aiming for a new baseline of capacity. You should be able to trigger 3 hard starts per day within 3 seconds of the thought occurring to you. No negotiation, no drama, just a countdown and a move. You will log these starts. You will prove to yourself that you are in control. You will finish one meaningful task every single day. It doesn't have to be a magnum opus. It just has to be done. You will define a minimum viable effort floor, a bar so low you can step over it on your worst day, and you will never go below it. You will keep a visible streak calendar, and you will protect that chain with your life. This is not about working 20 hours a day. It is about condensing the agony of procrastination into the energy of execution. It is about doing more in 2 hours of focused, fearless work than you currently do in 8 hours of anxious, low-level avoidance. The Great Divide. There are 2 types of people in this world, those who wait and those who do. The losers wait to feel ready. They treat their emotions as commands. They count their intentions as if they were results. They talk about what they are going to do. They negotiate with their excuses, giving them weight and validity. They track their wishes. The winners understand that feelings follow actions. They treat their emotions as suggestions, often poor ones. They count their starts. They build systems that make performance inevitable, regardless of how they feel. They do not negotiate with terrorists, and they do not negotiate with their own hesitation. They track their proof. You are standing on one side of this divide. The bridge to the other side is not built of hope. It is built of action. It is built of the willingness to feel the discomfort and do it anyway. You have the manual in your hands. You have the desire in your heart. But desire is not enough. You need a method. You need to understand the machinery of your own resistance so you can dismantle it. The enemy is not the world. The enemy is the silent alarm ringing in your head right now, telling you to close the book, check your phone, and do this later. It is the voice of the safety brake. It is the voice of stagnation. But before we can move, we must first decode the signal that stops you. There is a specific sensation that arises right before you quit. It is a biological trick, a phantom wall erected by a brain that loves the status quo. To defeat it, you must learn to name it, shame it, and rewire it. The alarm is ringing. It's time to change what it means. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to Grow to the Top and activate notifications to receive more self-improvement tips that will supercharge your growth. And make sure to give this video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you for your support. Chapter 2, Rewire Resistance. There is a specific moment that kills more dreams than lack of talent ever could. It happens in a split second. You look at the work you need to do, the blank document, the unsent email, the complex problem, and a physical sensation washes over you. It might feel like a tightening in your chest, a sudden wave of fatigue, or a restless agitation in your legs that screams at you to stand up and walk away. This sensation is the wall. Most people hit this wall and bounce off. They interpret this feeling as a stop sign. They think it means something is wrong. They tell themselves they are too tired, too distracted, or simply not in the mood. They back away, seeking the safety of a distraction, promising themselves they will try again when they feel better. But you are not going to do that anymore. You are going to learn that this feeling is not a stop sign. It is a lie. The wiring in your brain is deceiving you. It is running an ancient program designed to keep you safe in a world that no longer exists. This program views effort as expensive and uncertainty as dangerous. When you face a difficult task, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, lights up. It flags the hard work as a hazard. It dumps stress hormones into your system to urge you to flee. This is the effort avoidance bias in action. Your biology is screaming at you to conserve energy and retreat to the known, the safe, and the easy. If you listen to this signal, you remain stuck. You dodge the very work that builds your capacity. You avoid the tension that is necessary for growth. But if you can learn to reinterpret this signal, you can change everything. You can turn the internal alarm into a green light. The tuition of growth. The problem is not the sensation itself. The problem is the story you tell yourself about the sensation. When you feel that resistance, your default narrative is likely something like, "This is hard, I don't want to do this," or "I'm not ready for this." This narrative reinforces the threat. It tells your brain that the alarm was correct, and it amplifies the urge to escape. The story you tell becomes the state you feel. We need to change the story. We need to perform a cognitive reappraisal. This is a fancy psychological term for a simple, aggressive act, changing the label you put on your pain. Imagine you are in a gym. You are lifting a heavy weight. Your muscles burn. Your heart pounds. You are sweating. If you interpreted these physical sensations as symptoms of an illness, you would rush to the hospital. You would panic. But in the gym, you interpret them as signs of a good workout. You welcome the burn because you know it signals growth. You have framed the discomfort as the price of strength. You must apply this same logic to your work. When you sit down to focus and feel that agitation, you must stop calling it anxiety or procrastination. You must call it tuition. This strain is the fee you pay for entry into a higher level of performance. It is not trauma, it is investment. The moment you reframe the sensation from danger to growth cost, you change the chemical reaction in your brain. You reduce the panic. You engage the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning and control. You move from a defensive crouch to an offensive stance. The myths of comfort. To successfully rewire this resistance, we have to dismantle the mythology of comfort that has made you soft. You have likely been infected by the idea that high performance should feel good. You see people on social media talking about flow states and passion, and you assume that if you are struggling, you are doing it wrong. This is false. Flow is a reward that comes after you have wrestled with the initial friction. It is not the starting line. Another dangerous myth is that you need to eliminate fear before you act. You think you need to be confident to start, but confidence is not a prerequisite for action. It is a byproduct of action. The fear you feel is not a sign that you should stop. It is a mile marker. It tells you that you are approaching something that matters. If you weren't afraid, if you didn't feel resistance, it would mean the task was beneath you. The resistance is proof that you are pushing against your boundaries. The most insidious myth of all is that motivation must come first. You wait for the spark. You wait to feel like doing it. But as we discussed, feelings lag behind behavior. If you wait for the discomfort to fade before you begin, you are surrendering control of your life to your fluctuating biochemistry. You are letting a primitive survival instinct dictate your modern success. The 10-second reframe. So how do we do this in the heat of the moment? How do we take this theory and turn it into a weapon you can use on a Tuesday afternoon when you would rather do anything but work? We use a precise script. We do not rely on vague positive thinking. We rely on a specific, repeatable mental maneuver that takes 10 seconds or less. When the resistance hits you, when you feel that urge to tab away or pick up your phone, you are going to pause. You are not going to fight the feeling, and you are not going to give in to it. You are going to acknowledge it. You are going to say, "There is the alarm. Good." Then you run the script. It has 3 lines. You can say them out loud or scream them in your head, but you must articulate them clearly. Line 1. This is effort, not emergency. You are reminding your brain that you are not being chased by a predator. You are just writing a report or studying for an exam. You are de-escalating the biological threat response. You are stripping the sensation of its catastrophic power. Line 2. The price is worth the growth. You are assigning value to the pain. You are acknowledging that this discomfort is the currency you are using to buy a better future. You are validating the struggle as necessary and useful. Line 3. Begin the first micro step now. You are issuing a command. You are not asking yourself if you want to start. You are telling yourself to move. You are directing your attention away from the feeling and toward a tiny, manageable action. This script is not magic. It is a cognitive interrupt. It breaks the loop of rumination. It stops the spiral of avoidance before it can gather speed. By the time you finish the 3rd line, you have shifted your focus from "I don't want to do this" to "I am doing this." Measuring the enemy. Sometimes the resistance feels overwhelming. It feels like a 10-foot wall. But usually your brain is exaggerating. It is making a mountain out of a molehill to scare you off. To counter this, we need to force the brain to be precise. We need emotional granularity. When you feel the resistance, do not just call it bad. Rate it. Put a number on it. Ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much discomfort am I actually feeling right now? Is it really a 10? Is it really unbearable agony? Or is it a 4? Is it just a mild sense of boredom? Is it a vague feeling of uncertainty because you aren't sure how to start? Most of the time, you will find that the sensation is a 3 or a 4 masquerading as a 9. It is smoke and mirrors. By forcing yourself to rate it, you strip it of its power. You realize that you can easily handle a level 4 discomfort. You have handled worse things than this. Once you rate it, label it precisely. Don't say "I'm stuck." Say "I am feeling uncertainty." Don't say "I hate this." Say "I am feeling boredom." Naming the emotion reduces its intensity. It moves the processing of the emotion from the emotional center of the brain to the analytical center. It gives you distance. If the number is 7 or below, you have a green light. You act, you run the script, and you go. If it is an 8, 9, or 10, you don't quit. You just break the step down further until the threat level drops. But be honest with yourself. It is almost never a 10. The cost of comfort. If the reframe isn't enough, if the resistance is stubborn, you need to raise the stakes. You need to use your brain's loss aversion against itself. Your brain loves comfort, but it hates loss even more. We are going to use a tool called the cost of comfort contrast. When you are tempted to skip the hard thing, your brain is focused on the immediate relief of avoidance. It is thinking, "If I stop now, I will feel good." You need to force it to see the future. Write down or mentally project one sentence. "If I avoid this, I lose today." Fill in the blank. Be specific. If you avoid this workout, you lose the chance to build the body you want. If you avoid this writing session, you lose the trust you have built with yourself. If you avoid this difficult conversation, you lose your self-respect. Then write the second sentence. "If I do this, I gain blank today." If I do this, I gain a sense of pride. I gain momentum. I gain one more vote for the identity of a person who follows through. This contrast shocks the system. It exposes the hidden price of the easy way out. It makes the pain of stopping feel sharper than the pain of starting. It turns your natural desire to avoid pain into a propellant. You are no longer running away from the work. You are running away from the mediocrity that comes with avoidance. Troubleshooting the process. As you practice this, you will encounter pitfalls. The most common one is overthinking the reframe. You will stand there debating with yourself, analyzing your feelings, trying to find the perfect label. This is just procrastination in a cheap disguise. Do not intellectualize the resistance. Identify it, label it, run the script, and move. Cap the whole process at 10 seconds. If you are still standing there analyzing your feelings after 10 seconds, you have lost the round. Another trap is catastrophizing. You look at the task, and your brain screams that it is impossible, that you will fail, that it will be a disaster. This is the emergency setting kicking in. When this happens, write down one objective sentence about the worst-case scenario. Usually the risk is, I might write a bad paragraph, or I might feel awkward for a minute. Once you see the risk on paper, it looks small. You can step over it. Sometimes you will feel numb. You will try to run the script and feel nothing. The words will sound hollow. When this happens, you need to change your physiology. Your mind is stuck, so move your body. Stand up, exhale slowly and forcefully. Walk across the room, then say the script again. Physical motion changes emotional state. Use your body to jumpstart your brain. The craving. Here is the end game. Here is what happens when you do this consistently. At first, rewiring resistance is a manual process. It takes effort. You have to catch yourself, pause, and force the new narrative. It feels clunky. But over time, something shifts. You start to associate the feeling of resistance with the reward of progress. You start to realize that the tension is the precursor to the breakthrough. The neural pathways connect the alarm signal to the action response. Eventually, you stop dreading the resistance. You start to crave it. You walk into a situation, feel that familiar tightening in your chest, and instead of shrinking, you smile. You recognize the signal. It means you are in the right place. It means you are about to do something that matters. The fear becomes a compass. The discomfort becomes a validation. You will reach a point where a day without resistance feels empty. You will look for the hard things because you know that is where the value is hidden. You will become a hunter of discomfort. When you label the resistance daily, you reduce your delay time. You stop losing hours to hesitation. You reclaim your day. When you start within seconds of the alarm, you build a reputation with yourself. You become dangerous to your competitors and invaluable to your allies because you are the one who walks toward the fire while everyone else is backing away. But recognizing the signal and reframing the pain is only the first step. You have unlocked the door, but you haven't walked through it yet. Once you have flipped the mental switch, you have created a tiny opening, a window of opportunity. It is fragile. It is fleeting. The reframe buys you a few precious seconds of clarity before the old habits try to rush back in. What you do in those next few seconds determines everything. There is a specific way to move your body that bypasses the brain's last line of defense. There is a technique to launch yourself into motion so fast that your doubt doesn't even have time to put its shoes on. The alarm has been silenced. The green light is flashing. Now we need speed. Chapter 3, First Seconds. There is a ghost in the machine of your mind. It lives in the space between your intention and your action. You know this ghost well. It appears the moment you decide to do something difficult. You think, I should write that report. For a microsecond, you are ready. You are willing. But then, a pause happens. A tiny, imperceptible gap opens up in your consciousness. In that gap, the ghost whispers. It says, but first, let me check my email. It says, I need more coffee before I can focus. It says, I'll start at the top of the hour. That gap is where your potential goes to die. We call this the hesitation gap. It is the most dangerous territory in the landscape of human behavior. Most people live their entire lives camped out in this gap, negotiating with their own potential, waiting for a permission slip that will never arrive. They believe that if they wait long enough, the anxiety of starting will dissipate. They think that if they prepare enough, the work will become easy. But you know the truth. You know that the longer you stand on the edge of the cliff, the higher it looks. You know that hesitation is not a pause for reflection. It is the oxygen of doubt. Every second you wait is a vote for the status quo. Every second you delay is time you give your brain to build a legal case against doing the work. and your brain is an excellent lawyer. Give it 3 seconds, and it will present a compelling argument for why you are too tired, too busy, or too underqualified to begin. Give it 5 seconds, and it will convince you that cleaning the kitchen is actually a moral imperative that must happen before you open your laptop. We are going to fire the lawyer. We are going to close the gap. We are going to master the art of the first seconds. The speed of state. You have likely been told that patience is a virtue. In the context of execution, patience is a vice. Patience is just a pretty word for procrastination. When it comes to the act of starting, speed is the only virtue that matters. This is not about rushing the work itself. It is about rushing the entry into the work. There is a profound difference. You can write a thoughtful, slow, meticulous book, but you must start writing it fast. You can build a complex, careful business strategy, but you must sit down to design it immediately. Why is speed so critical? Because speed creates state. Most people wait for their emotional state to change before they act. They wait to feel motivated or inspired or energetic. They are passive recipients of their own biochemistry. But as we established, you cannot think your way into a new way of acting. You must act your way into a new way of feeling. When you move quickly, you bypass the brain's limbic friction. You outrun the amygdala. If you initiate an action within 3 seconds of the thought occurring, you are moving faster than your fear can mobilize. You are already in motion before the doubt has time to put its boots on. Think of it like a Band-Aid. The slow pull is agonizing. It gives you time to anticipate the pain, to wince, to pull back. The fast rip is over before your nerves can even register the protest. We're going to treat every start like a fast rip. We're going to weaponize speed to silence self-sabotage. The myth of the perfect runway. Before we get to the mechanic, we have to destroy a myth that is likely holding you back. It is the myth of the perfect runway. You probably believe that a good start requires a runway. You think you need to clear the decks, organize your desk, get the lighting right, have the perfect playlist, and ensure there are 0 distractions before you can begin. You treat the start of work like a sacred ritual that requires a pristine temple. This is nonsense. This is fear dressing up as preparation. The more requirements you place on your environment before you start, the more excuses you give yourself to delay. If you need the house to be quiet to start writing, you will never write. If you need a full hour of free time to start exercising, you will never train. Real professionals do not need a perfect runway. They can take off from a dirt road in the rain. They don't need a ritual, they need a trigger. They understand that the perfect time is a fairy tale. The only time is now. The only condition is willingness. Hesitation masquerades as thoughtfulness. You tell yourself you are just planning or strategizing. But let's be honest, you aren't strategizing. You are stalling. You are looking for a way out. Speed feels reckless to the procrastinator because it removes the safety net of excuses. But to the high performer, speed is safety. Speed is the only thing that keeps the plane in the air. The micromotion. So how do we cross the gap? How do we move faster than the lawyer in our head? We do not focus on the task. The task is too big. Write chapter 1 is a mountain. Do my taxes is a monster. If you focus on the mountain, you will freeze. Instead, we focus on a single mechanical physical action. We call this the micromotion. A micromotion is a physical movement that signifies commitment. It is not a mental decision. It is a bodily act. It is the difference between thinking, I should go for a run, and physically putting your left foot into your running shoe. You cannot debate putting on a shoe. It is too small to argue with. It is too trivial to fear. But once the shoe is on, the dynamic changes. You have broken the seal of inertia. You need to pre-decide these motions for your core tasks. You cannot be deciding how to start in the moment of starting because decision requires cognitive load, and cognitive load invites hesitation. You need a reflex. If you are a writer, your micromotion might be opening the laptop lid, not writing a sentence, just opening the lid. If you are a student, it might be placing your phone in a drawer. If you are an athlete, It might be filling your water bottle. These actions are the ignition keys. They are small, binary, and physical. You either did it or you didn't. There is no gray area. By shrinking the start down to a micromotion, you slip under the radar of your brain's threat detection system. You are not doing hard work. You are just opening a laptop. That's safe. That's easy. But once the laptop is open, you are in the arena. The 3-2-1 protocol. Now we have the vehicle, the micromotion. We need the launch sequence. This is the core of the first-second strategy. It is the tool you will use to override your programming. It is called the 3-2-1 protocol. It works exactly like a rocket launch. When NASA counts down, they do not get to 0 and then have a meeting about whether they should launch. The countdown is the commitment. When the clock hits 0, the engines fire. Physics takes over. Here's how you will use it. The moment you think of the task, the moment the "I should do X" thought enters your mind, you are on the clock. You have a 3-second window before the hesitation gap widens and the lawyer starts talking. You will catch that thought. You will physically exhale. This is crucial. It resets your nervous system. And then, either out loud or silently in your head, you will count. 3, 2, 1. On 1 you move. You do not think. You do not check your feelings. You execute the micro-motion. You open the lid. You put on the shoe. You pick up the phone. You must treat 1 like a command from a general. It is not a suggestion. It is a biological trigger. You are training your brain that the countdown is an irrevocable contract. When the numbers run out, the body moves. If you stall, if you hit 1 and you are still frozen, you have to reset immediately. Do not just hang out in the failure. Shake your body out. Step away. Then step back in and count again. But this time shrink the micromotion. If you couldn't open the laptop, just touch the laptop. Make the step so small it is insulting. Then count. 3, 2, 1. Move. This sounds simplistic. It is. That is why it works. Complexity is the enemy of execution. You don't need a complex system to start. You need a brute force override code. The 3-2-1 protocol is that code. It cuts the wire between your brain's panic center and your body's motor cortex. The 2-minute runway. You have launched, you have executed the micromotion, you are moving, but now a new fear creeps in, the fear of the marathon. Your brain realizes you have tricked it. It looks at the road ahead and sees hours of drudgery. It panics. It wants to bail out. Okay, you open the laptop, it says, but we are not seriously going to write for 3 hours, are we? To silence this secondary alarm, we need a safety net. We need to make a deal with the brain. We call this the 2-minute runway. The deal is simple. You are only committed to 2 minutes of work. You are not sitting down to write the chapter. You are sitting down to write for 2 minutes. You're not going to the gym for an hour. You are going to the gym for 2 minutes. Set a timer. Seriously, set it. When you hit 1 on your countdown and execute your micromotion, you immediately start a 2-minute timer. For those 2 minutes, you work, you do the thing, but you have a standing agreement with yourself. When the timer beeps, you have full guilt-free permission to stop. If you really truly want to quit after 2 minutes, you can walk away and still count it as a victory. You showed up, you kept your word. But here is the secret. You almost never will. The hardest part of any task is the first 2 minutes. That is where the friction is highest. That is where the aerodynamic drag of inertia is pulling at you. Once you cross that 2-minute threshold, you have broken the surface tension. You are in motion. Newton's first law applies to human psychology. A body in motion tends to stay in motion. Once you are 2 minutes in, the work is usually not as scary as you thought. The lawyer has nothing to say because you are already doing it. When the timer beeps, you will face a choice: stop or extend. Most of the time, you will say, "I'm already here. I might as well keep going." And just like that, you have tricked your brain into a deep work session. Hashed troubleshooting the launch. As you practice this, you will encounter resistance. Your brain is clever. It will try to hack the system. You might develop countdown addiction, where you count 3, 2, 1, but don't move, so you count again and again, using the countdown itself as a procrastination tool. If this happens, stop counting. The tool has lost its edge. You need to physically change your state. Stand up. Do 10 jumping jacks. Scream into a pillow. Shock your system. Then, try one single countdown with a smaller micro-motion. You might face timer anxiety, where even 2 minutes feels like a prison sentence. If that happens, make it shorter. Make it 60 seconds. Make it 30. The time doesn't matter. The start matters. We are building the habit of initiation, not duration. Duration is easy once initiation is automatic. The ignition of identity. When you start living by the first seconds, something fundamental shifts in your self-image. You stop being a person who struggles with motivation. You become a person who has a launch sequence. You realize that you don't need to feel good to work. You just need to count to 1. Imagine the power of knowing that you can trigger action on command. Imagine the confidence that comes from knowing that no matter how lazy or tired you feel, you have a mechanism that works. You are no longer at the mercy of your moods. You are the pilot of the machine. You will start to see the hesitation gap everywhere. You will see it in your colleagues, your friends, your family. You will see them pause, negotiate, and retreat. And you will realize that you have a superpower. You can cross the gap. But crossing the gap is only the beginning. You have ignition. You have liftoff. You are in the air. However, a rocket without a trajectory is just a dangerous firework. Getting started is the hardest part, but staying in motion requires something else. It requires a path. It requires a structure that ensures that once you are moving in the right direction without having to stop and ask for directions every 5 minutes. You have learned to fire the engine. Now we need to program the navigation computer. We need to make sure that once you start, the action flows automatically, loop after loop, without you ever having to think about what comes next. Because if you have to stop to think, the gap opens up again, and we are not going back to the gap. Chapter 4. Action Loops. You have mastered the art of the start. You know how to count down, override the hesitation gap, and trick your body into motion before your brain can protest. That is a superpower. But a single start does not build a career. A single start does not write a book, build a business, or master a skill. Imagine a car that requires you to hotwire the engine every single time you want to move forward 10 feet. You would be exhausted before you left your driveway. The ignition is critical, but if you don't have an engine that cycles automatically, you are not going anywhere fast. The problem with most productivity advice is that it relies on you making good decisions all day long. It assumes you will wake up, look at a blank calendar, and benevolent wisdom will descend upon you, guiding you to choose the most important task. This is a fantasy. In reality, you wake up tired, you are bombarded by notifications. Your brain is a battery that leaks energy with every decision you make. By the time you sit down to work, if you have to ask yourself, "What should I do now?" you have already lost. The moment you ask that question, you invite the debate. And as we know, the debate is where dreams go to die. We need to eliminate the question. We need to take the you out of the equation. We are going to build a system where doing the work is not a choice you make, but a default that happens to you. We are going to install action loops. The fatigue of freedom. There is a hidden tax you pay every day called decision fatigue. Every time you choose what to wear, what to email, or which tab to open, you burn glucose. You deplete your executive function. When you rely on willpower to navigate your day, you are fighting a war of attrition against your own biology. You might win the morning battles, but by 2 p.m., your defenses are down, and you find yourself scrolling through social media, not because you are lazy, but because you are decision bankrupt. Reliability beats intensity. The amateur waits for a burst of manic energy to pull an all-nighter. The professional builds a system that ensures progress happens even on days when they feel like a wet towel. The goal of this chapter is to convert your one-off wins into a lifestyle. We are going to move control from your internal willpower to your external context. We are going to script your behavior so that when a specific thing happens in your world, a specific action happens in your body without your permission. The algorithm of you. To do this, we use a tool from behavioral psychology called implementation intentions. That sounds dry, so let's call them what they are: scripts. A computer runs on scripts. If X happens, then execute Y. It doesn't agonize over whether it feels like executing Y. It doesn't check its horoscope. It just runs the code. You're going to program yourself with the same logic. You're going to write if-then scripts for your life. The structure is rigid. If time, place, cue, then specific micro-motion. Most people have vague intentions. They say, I will study more. This is useless. It is a wish, not a plan. A script looks like this. If it is 7 p.m. and I am sitting on the couch, then I will open my textbook to page 42. Notice the difference. The first relies on you remembering to be a good student. The second offloads the decision to the clock and the couch. When the clock strikes 7 p.m., the decision has already been made. You are simply the actor executing the lines. You need to build 3 anchor scripts to stabilize your life. You need one for your deep work, one for your learning or skill acquisition, and one for your physical training. For work, it might look like this. If it is 8:30 a.m. and I have a coffee in my hand, then I open my primary project document. For training, if I close my laptop at 5:30 p.m., then I immediately put on my running shoes. This is cue-action fusion. You are welding a specific trigger to a specific behavior. At first, you will have to consciously follow the script, but after a few weeks, the weld hardens. The cue itself will trigger the urge to do the action. Closing your laptop will make your feet itch for running shoes. 8:30 a.m. will make your fingers itch for the keyboard. You are automating your own excellence. The myth of spontaneity. I can hear the objection already, but I want to be flexible. I don't want to live like a robot. This is the myth of spontaneity. You think that a lack of structure gives you freedom. In reality, a lack of structure gives you chaos. If you spend 20 minutes every morning staring at your screen, paralyzed by the infinite options of what you could do, you are not free. You are a slave to indecision. You are wasting your life in the gray zone of hesitation. Structure preserves flexibility. By scripting the basics, the start of your work, the start of your workout, you finish your obligations faster. You eliminate the drag of figuring it out. You get the hard things done efficiently, which buys you true freedom to do whatever you want with the rest of your day. Another lie you tell yourself is, I'll remember what to do next. No, you won't. Memory is a bottleneck. Under stress, your working memory shrinks. If you rely on your brain to hold your to-do list, you are using processing power that should be used for creative problem-solving. Complex systems fail. We are not building a complex color-coded calendar with 12 subcategories. We are building simple binary loops. If this, then that. The DNA protocol. Scripts get you started, but what keeps you moving? How do you ensure that when you sit down, you don't waste 10 minutes rereading what you did yesterday? You need a default next action. We call this your DNA. Ambiguity is the kryptonite of action. If your to-do list says work on Project Alpha, you will procrastinate. Why? Because work on Project Alpha is not an action. It is a project. It is a fuzzy cloud of potential tasks. Your brain looks at it, sees a tangled mess, and flags it as a threat. You must translate projects into microverbs. You must define the DNA. A DNA is a single, concrete physical action that moves the ball forward. It is not write chapter. It is draft 3 bullet points for the intro. It is not contact clients. It is email Sarah about the invoice. Here is the golden rule of the action loop. Never finish a session without defining the DNA for the next one. This is the secret weapon of prolific creators. Hemingway used to stop writing mid-sentence so that when he sat down the next day, he knew exactly where to start. He didn't have to generate new momentum. He just had to finish the thought. At the end of your work block, take 30 seconds to write down the exact next step. Leave it visible. Put it on a sticky note on your screen. Leave the document open to that spot. When you return tomorrow, your script will get you in the chair. If it is 8:30 a.m., and your DNA will tell you exactly what to do, then I type the rest of this sentence. You bypass the what now phase entirely. You step onto a moving walkway. Auditing the machine. You are building a machine made of habits, but machines require maintenance. Entropy is real. Scripts break, cues stop working, friction builds up. You cannot just set this and forget it. You need a feedback loop. You need the weekly loop audit. Once a week, take 15 minutes to look at your system. Be a cold, heartless mechanic. Look at the days you failed. Don't judge yourself. Judge the script. Did you miss your workout on Tuesday? Why? Was the script, if it is 5 p.m., I go to the gym? Maybe 5 p.m. is a bad cue because you are often stuck in meetings. Change the cue. Make it, if I arrive at my front door, I do not sit down until I am in my gym clothes. Did you stare at your screen for 20 minutes on Wednesday? Why? Did you lack a DNA? Did you leave yourself a vague instruction like, think about strategy? Tighten the loop. Ask yourself 3 questions. Which script failed? Where did I have to make a decision instead of just doing? What friction blocked me? If a script fails twice, it is a bad script. Change the cue or shrink the action. If you couldn't do 20 minutes of study, change the script to 5 minutes. Never rely on trying harder next week. Fix the system so effort isn't required. Tricks of the trade. To make these loops unbreakable, you need to use your environment. Use your calendar as a weapon. Do not just put work on the calendar. In the calendar invite, write the script and the DNA. 8:30 a.m., open Project Alpha and write the first paragraph of the summary. When the notification pops up, it gives you the instruction manual. Stage your tools. This is the start position. If your script is to read in the morning, place the book on your pillow before you leave the bedroom. If your script is to work on a drawing, leave the sketchbook open and the pen uncapped on your desk. You want to lower the activation energy to 0. You want to make it so that it is actually harder to not do the thing than to do it. End every day with a shutdown sentence. This is a ritual where you close your loops. You look at what you did, you write down the DNA for tomorrow morning, and you say a phrase that signals to your brain that work is done. It clears the mental RAM. It allows you to rest so that your battery is full for the next loop. The danger of script creep. As you start to feel the power of this, you will get excited. You will want to script every minute of your day. You will want an if-then for your morning water, your reading, your meditation, your deep work, your email, and your sleep. Do not do this. This is script creep. If you try to install 10 new scripts at once, your system will crash. You will feel overwhelmed by your own rules. Limit yourself to 3 active scripts at a time. Focus on the big rocks, your main work, your health, your learning. Let those solidify. Wait until they are so automatic that you do them without thinking, usually about 30 to 60 days. Only then should you add a new script. If a cue is vague, like sometime in the morning, it will fail. Specificity is the driver of action. If the step is bloated, like write the report, it will fail. Granularity is the driver of momentum. If you miss a cue, don't spiral. Do an immediate do-over. If you were supposed to start at 8:30 and you realize it is 8:45, reset. Do a 3-2-1 countdown and execute the script now. If you miss it consistently, the script is wrong. Move the time. Change the trigger. The automated life. When you get this right, the feeling is strange. The drama disappears from your work. You stop having those heroic days where you crush it for 12 hours and then crash for 3 days. Instead, you have a steady, relentless rhythm. You become a factory of output. You wake up, the cue fires, and you work. You finish, you set the DNA, and you stop. You see the cue for exercise, and you move. Your decision fatigue drops. Your brain feels clearer because it isn't holding 1,000 open loops. You are not burning energy deciding when to work. You are pouring all that energy into the work. You become reliable, And in a world of flakes and dreamers, reliability is the ultimate competitive advantage. But there is a catch. You can have the perfect start, you can have the perfect script, you can have the perfect next action defined, but some days the work itself is just heavy. Some days the mountain looks too high, even if you know the first step. You have the engine running, you have the tracks laid down, but how do you ensure that the train keeps moving when the incline gets steep? How do you trick your brain into tackling a massive project when every fiber of your being wants to crawl back into bed? We need to talk about the physics of size. We need to talk about how to make the mountain look like a pebble. We need to explore the strange magic of doing almost nothing, and how that almost nothing is the only way to do everything. Chapter 5, Tiny Momentum. You have an ego problem. When you sit down to plan your day, or your week, or your life, you are not planning for the person you actually are. You are planning for a superhero version of yourself that does not exist. You look at your goals, write a book, get a degree, launch a business, and your brain immediately translates the magnitude of the goal into the magnitude of the effort required. You think big goal equals big effort, so you schedule a 4-hour deep work block. You commit to studying 50 pages a day. You decide you will overhaul your entire workflow overnight. And then you fail. You fail because you are trying to sprint up a mountain before you have learned to walk. You fail because big efforts trigger big resistance. When you stare at a 4-hour block on your calendar, your amygdala screams. It sees a massive energy expenditure, a high risk of failure, and a long period of discomfort, so it pulls the emergency brake. You don't need more ambition. You have plenty of that. You need to learn the physics of momentum. Momentum does not come from a single heroic explosion of energy. It comes from a series of tiny, almost imperceptible pushes that compound over time. If you want to become unstoppable, you must first become willing to start small, laughably, insultingly, ridiculously small. The trap of heroics. We live in a culture that fetishizes the grind. We applaud the all-nighters, the marathon sessions, the Herculean efforts. But heroics are not a strategy. They are a symptom of poor planning. Heroics are unsustainable. You can sprint for a minute, but you cannot sprint for a decade. And anything worth doing takes a decade. Reliability beats intensity every single time. The person who writes one terrible paragraph every day will have a finished manuscript long before the person who waits for a manic burst of inspiration to write 10 pages and then burns out for a month. The problem is that your brain is wired to discount small actions. It tells you, if it's not hard, it doesn't matter. It tells you that doing 2 minutes of work is pointless. It tells you that unless you are sweating, suffering, and straining, you aren't making progress. This is the voice of the ego, and it is lying to you. Small actions are the only things that are repeatable under stress. When you are tired, when you are sick, when your motivation is at zero, you cannot summon a heroic effort, but you can summon a tiny one. And it is on those bad days, not the good ones, that habits are forged. We are going to replace the go big or go home mentality with a new operating system, minimum viable effort. The floor, not the ceiling. In product design, there is a concept called the minimum viable product, MVP. It is the simplest, ugliest version of a product that you can release to the world just to see if it works. We are going to apply this to your behavior. We are going to define your minimum viable effort, MVE. Your MVE is the absolute lowest amount of work that still counts as doing the habit. It is a bar so low that you can step over it even on your worst day. It is a task so small that your brain's threat detection system doesn't even notice it. If your goal is to write, your MVE is not 1,000 words, it is 1 sentence. Or maybe just opening the document and typing the date. If your goal is to study, your MVE is not a chapter, it is reading 1 page, or reviewing 3 flashcards. If your goal is to get fit, your MVE is not a 60-minute workout. It is putting on your shoes and doing 5 push-ups. The purpose of the MVE is not to produce a result. The purpose is to protect the habit. When you set an MVE, you are establishing a floor. You are saying, I will never do less than this. You can always do more, and you usually will, but you are forbidden from doing less. This changes the psychological game. When the target is write 1,000 words, starting feels heavy. The pressure is high. But when the target is write one sentence, the pressure vanishes. Anyone can write one sentence. You can write one sentence while you are waiting for the kettle to boil. By lowering the barrier to entry, you eliminate the friction of starting. And as we know, starting is the only part that matters. The 1-2-8 method. So how do we turn these tiny starts into actual work? We use a technique called micro-commitment chaining, specifically the 1-2-8 method. This is how you trick yourself into deep work. Step 1. Commit to 1 minute. Tell yourself you are only going to do the MVE. Just 1 minute of focus. Just one sentence. This gets you into the chair. It overcomes the static friction. Step 2. The check-in. Once you have done that 1 minute, ask yourself, can I do 2 more minutes? Since you are already there and the tool is already open, the answer is almost always yes. So you do 2 minutes. Step 3. The extension. At the 3-minute mark, 1 + 2, you are now in motion. The blood is flowing. The anxiety of the start has evaporated. Now you ask, can I go for 8 minutes? 8 minutes is a magic number. It is substantial enough to make real progress, but short enough that it doesn't feel like a prison sentence. Most of the time, once you hit the 8-minute mark, you will keep going. You will enter a flow state. You will look up and realize 20 minutes have passed. You have tricked your brain into a session it would have rejected if you had proposed it up front. But here is the critical rule. You must be allowed to stop. If you do your 1 minute of MVE and you truly, honestly hate it, if you are sick or exhausted or the words just aren't coming, you must be allowed to quit. You mark it as a win because you hit the floor and you walk away guilt-free. If you don't allow yourself to quit at the floor, your brain will learn that the MVE is a trap. It will stop trusting you. The deal must be real. The floor is the win. Anything above the floor is extra credit. The chain of evidence. Why does this work? Why does doing 1 push-up matter? It matters because identity is built on evidence. Every time you execute a habit, no matter how small, you cast a vote for the type of person you want to be. When you do your MVE, you are telling yourself, I am the kind of person who shows up. You are reinforcing the identity of a finisher. A day with 1 sentence written is infinitely better than a day with 0 sentences written, not because of the output, but because of the continuity. To make this powerful, you need to see it. You need to track your small wins. Get a calendar, a physical one, put it on your wall. Every day that you hit your MVE, put a big red X on that day. This is not a gimmick. This is leveraging your brain's loss aversion. After 3 days, you have a tiny chain. After a week, you have a streak. After 2 weeks, that chain becomes a precious asset. You will find yourself doing the work not because you are motivated, but because you cannot bear the thought of breaking the chain. You will do your push-ups at 11:55 p.m. just to keep the X on the calendar. This is the snowball. The momentum starts to carry you. The friction of deciding, should I do this, disappears, replaced by the compulsion to keep the streak alive. Protecting the momentum. There are traps here, of course. The biggest one is the good day trap. You will have days where you feel great. You will sit down to do your MVE, and you will end up working for 4 hours. You will feel like a god. And the next day, your ego will whisper, okay, the new standard is 4 hours. That's the new floor. Do not listen. If you raise the floor, you reintroduce the fear. You bring back the resistance. Keep the floor at the MVE level, no matter how successful you are. The goal is to make the habit bulletproof, not to maximize daily output. In fact, you should use a floor and ceiling strategy. Set a maximum limit for your work in the beginning. Tell yourself, I will write for at least 2 minutes, but no more than 20. Stopping when you still have energy is a power move. Hemingway did this. He stopped writing when he knew what was coming next. This does 2 things. It prevents burnout, and it makes it easy to start the next day. You are parking on a downhill slope. Troubleshooting the stall. What happens when you break the streak? Because you will. Life happens. You will get the flu. You will have a family emergency. You will miss a day. The danger is not the missed day. The danger is the what the hell effect. This is when you say, well, I broke the streak, so the whole thing is ruined. I might as well take the week off. This is how a stumble becomes a fall. This is how a bad day becomes a bad year. You need a rule: never miss twice. If you miss a day, the priority for the next day shifts. It is no longer about progress, it is about repair. You must do the MVE immediately. You must restart the chain. A streak with one gap is still a record of consistency. A streak with two gaps is the beginning of the end. If you find yourself bored with the MVE, if doing one push-up feels too easy, do not raise the number. Change the variant. Do a different kind of push-up. Write a different kind of sentence. Keep the effort low, but change the texture to keep your brain engaged. And watch out for perfectionism. Perfectionism is just procrastination in a tuxedo. It will tell you that your MVE doesn't count because the quality wasn't high enough. That paragraph was garbage, it will say. It shouldn't get an X on the calendar. Ignore it. The metric is not quality. The metric is showing up. You can edit a bad page. You cannot edit a blank page. The X is for the act of sitting in the chair, not for the brilliance of the work produced. The snowball effect. When you combine these elements, the MVE, the 128 chaining, and the visual streak, you create a system that runs on its own physics. At first, you are pushing the snowball. It feels slow. It feels insignificant. You look at your one sentence and think, this is going to take forever. But then the days stack up. The sentences become paragraphs. The paragraphs become chapters. The push-ups become strength. You realize that by refusing to stop, you have traveled further than the people who sprinted and collapsed. You begin to trust yourself. You know that no matter how you feel, you can hit the floor. You can always do the MVE. And because you can always start, you usually finish. You have removed the terror of the blank page. You have removed the weight of the big goal. You have replaced the need for heroic willpower with the simple, mechanical reliability of a ratchet. Click, click, click. One step at a time, never slipping back. But there is a missing piece. We have talked about how to start. We have talked about how to structure the action. We have talked about how to size the task so it is impossible to refuse. But why do we do anything? Why do we eat? Why do we scroll? Why do we check our phones? We do it because it feels good. The fundamental problem with hard work is that usually the reward is far away. You write the book now, but you get published in 2 years. You diet now, but you get the abs in 6 months. The brain hates this delay. It wants the cookie now. If we want to make this system truly unbreakable, we cannot just rely on discipline and streaks. We need to hack the brain's chemistry. We need to take the dopamine that your brain is begging for and hotwire it directly to the effort itself. We need to stop fighting the brain's desire for pleasure and start using it. We need to learn how to make the hard thing feel like the treat. Chapter 6, Reward Design. Your brain is a drug addict. That sounds harsh, but it is biologically accurate. Your brain is not a logic machine designed to maximize your 10-year career plan. It is a chemical processing plant designed to hunt for dopamine. It wants to feel good, and it wants to feel good right now. This is the fundamental friction of the human condition. The things that are good for you, deep work, studying, building a business, usually offer a delayed return. You do the work today, but you get the degree, the profit, or the finished book months or years from now. Your brain hates this. To your limbic system, a reward that is months away might as well not exist. It discounts the future heavily. It looks at the hard task, sees the energy cost, and asks, where is the payout? When the answer is in 2 years, it slams on the brakes. This is why you scroll. This is why you procrastinate. Scrolling offers a tiny, immediate hit of dopamine. It is low effort and instant reward. Writing a report is high effort and delayed reward. In a fair fight, the scroll wins every time. So we are going to stop fighting fair. We are going to rig the game. We are going to take the dopamine that your brain is desperately searching for, and we are going to hotwire it directly to the act of doing the work. We are not going to wait for the world to reward us. We are going to engineer a system where the hard thing feels good the moment you do it. The dog and the clicker. You might think you are too sophisticated for rewards. You might think that as a rational adult, you should be able to work simply because it is the right thing to do. You might think that needing a treat to finish a task is childish. Get over yourself. You are not above your biology. Think about how a trainer teaches a dog to sit. They don't explain the philosophical benefits of obedience. They say, sit, the dog sits, and click, the dog gets a treat. The click marks the behavior, and the treat reinforces it. After enough reps, the dog sits just to hear the click. The behavior itself becomes the trigger for satisfaction. You need to treat your inner primitive brain with the same pragmatic approach. You need to couple the effort with a reward. This is called effort-reward coupling. It is the art of linking a difficult action with an immediate positive stimulus. The key word here is immediate. If you tell yourself, if I work hard all week, I will go to the movies on Sunday, your brain will laugh at you. Sunday is a lifetime away. The gap between the effort Tuesday morning and the reward Sunday night is too wide. The dopamine bridge collapses. You need a reward that hits you within seconds of the behavior. You need to close the loop instantly. When the brain sees that action A immediately leads to pleasure B, it starts to mark action A as valuable. It starts to crave the action, not for the action's sake, but for the association it carries. The menu of small wins. The mistake most people make is thinking that rewards need to be big. They think of vacations, purchases, or big nights out. These are not habits. These are events. For a habit loop, the reward must be cheap, fast, and repeatable. It needs to be something you can consume or experience multiple times a day without ruining your life or your wallet. You need to build a reward menu. The most powerful item on this menu is often the most symbolic, the visual tick. Do not underestimate the power of marking an X on a page or checking a box on a digital dashboard. When you finish your minimum viable effort and you physically mark that task as done, your brain releases a microscopic hit of dopamine. It is the satisfaction of closing a loop. It is a signal of competence. But we can do better than just check marks. We can use somatic markers. This is a physical action that celebrates the win. When you finish your block of work, say done out loud. Clap your hands once. Stand up and stretch your arms over your head. It sounds ridiculous, but you are anchoring the feeling of success to a physical movement. You are teaching your nervous system that this feeling follows this work. You can also use sensory rewards. Maybe you allow yourself 2 minutes of browsing a specific guilt-free website immediately after you finish your sprint. Maybe you step outside for exactly 60 seconds of fresh air. The specific reward doesn't matter as much as the timing. It must happen after the rep, and it must happen fast. The sequence is sacred: effort, then reward, never the other way around. The Trojan horse of pleasure. There is a way to make the start of the work feel almost as good as the end. It is a strategy called temptation bundling. This is where you take a behavior you love, something you crave, and you tie it exclusively to the behavior you are avoiding. You bundle the temptation with the task. Let's say you love listening to a specific true crime podcast. Usually you listen to it whenever you want, while driving, while doing dishes, while lying on the couch. This is a waste of leverage. From now on, you are only allowed to listen to that podcast while you're doing your household admin or cleaning your workspace. If you love a specific high-energy playlist, you are only allowed to listen to it when you are starting your deep work session. You are creating a rule of exclusivity. You are holding the pleasure hostage. If you want the podcast, you have to do the cleaning. If you want the music, you have to open the document. Suddenly, the hard thing becomes the vehicle for the fun thing. Your brain stops dreading the task and starts looking forward to the entertainment that comes with it. You are smuggling the work inside a Trojan horse of pleasure. But you must be ruthless with the rules. If you listen to that playlist while you're just walking around, you break the seal. The association dissolves. The magic only works if the boundary is absolute. The slot machine in your head. If you do this correctly, if you couple effort with immediate rewards, you will build a habit. But if you want to turn that habit into an obsession, you need to understand one more piece of neuroscience. You need to understand the reward prediction error. If you get the exact same reward every single time you do an action, eventually, the dopamine spike decreases. Your brain gets bored. It predicts the reward perfectly, so the thrill fades. This is why the first time you hear a great song, it gives you chills, but the 100th time, it's just background noise. To keep the engagement high, you need variability. You need the element of surprise. Think about a slot machine. You pull the lever. Sometimes you get nothing. Sometimes you get a little. Sometimes you get a jackpot. You never know what's coming. That uncertainty keeps you pulling the lever. You can engineer this into your work. Keep your standard rewards fixed. You always get the check mark. You always get the satisfaction of the done list. That provides the baseline reinforcement. But then layer in a variable reward. Once a week, or at random intervals, give yourself a jackpot. Maybe if you hit your streak for 7 days, you buy that piece of gear you've been eyeing. Maybe on a random Tuesday, if you finish your block, you knock off an hour early and go for a long walk. You can even gamify it. Roll a die after your work session. If you roll a 6, you get a special bonus, a movie, a purchase, a guilt-free afternoon. If you roll 1-5, you just get the standard satisfaction of a job well done. This unpredictability spikes the dopamine. It keeps the brain engaged. It turns the daily grind into a game of chance where the odds are tilted in your favor, but the outcome is still a pleasant surprise. The trap of the treat. As you implement this, you have to watch out for reward leakage. This is the most common failure mode. You have a bad day. You feel stressed. So you tell yourself, I need a pick-me-up, and you give yourself the reward before you have done the work. You listen to the playlist to get in the mood. You take the break to clear your head. You have just severed the connection. You have taught your brain that it can get the prize without running the race. You must be a tyrant about the order of operations. The reward must follow the rep. If you drift, if you cheat, you devalue the entire currency of your system. You also need to ensure the reward doesn't sabotage the identity. If your goal is to be a focused, productive person, your reward shouldn't be 3 hours of mindless scrolling that leaves you feeling brain dead. The reward should be restorative. It should celebrate the energy you just spent, not negate it. The shift. When you layer these strategies, effort-reward coupling, temptation bundling, and variable rewards, something strange happens to your experience of work. You stop fighting yourself. The friction lowers. You sit down to work, and instead of feeling a wave of dread, you feel a subtle pull. You want the checkmark. You want the music. You want the chance at the jackpot. The work itself starts to take on a different texture. Because it is constantly associated with positive chemical signals, the brain starts to reclassify the effort. It stops tagging it as pain and starts tagging it as pre-pleasure. Eventually, the external rewards become less necessary. The competence itself becomes the addiction. The feeling of being a person who executes becomes the ultimate high. You start to crave the resistance because you know that on the other side of it lies the chemical payoff you have engineered. You have tricked your brain. You have turned the enemy into an ally. You have built a loop that feeds itself. But there is a problem. You can have the mindset. You can have the start. You can have the script. You can have the reward. You can be a dopamine hacking genius. But you do not live in a vacuum. You live in a physical world. And right now, your physical world is likely designed to destroy everything we have just built. You are trying to be a high-performance machine in an environment designed for distraction. You are trying to focus in a room that is screaming at you to multitask. You are fighting a war against your own furniture, your own devices, and the very layout of your life. Willpower is a finite resource. If you have to use it to ignore your phone, to find your tools, or to block out the chaos, you will have none left for the work. We need to stop relying on self-control to navigate a minefield. We need to clear the minds. We need to reshape the world around you so that the hard choice becomes the only choice. Chapter 7. Shape Environment. You are fighting a war you cannot win. Every day, you wake up with a finite amount of willpower. It is a small, rechargeable battery. You use it to drag yourself out of bed, to choose your clothes, to suppress the urge to scream at traffic. By the time you sit down to do the work that actually matters, the writing, the coding, the studying, that battery is already draining. And then you enter the battlefield. You sit down at a desk that is covered in clutter. Your phone is right next to your hand, face up, pulsing with notifications. Your browser has 20 tabs open, 19 of which are designed to steal your attention. Your environment is screaming at you to do anything but work. You think you can resist this. You think you can use your willpower to ignore the phone, look past the mess, and focus on the task. You are wrong. Your environment is not a passive backdrop. It is an active force. It is a silent roommate who is constantly suggesting what you should do next. If your phone is visible, the room is suggesting, check me. If the TV remote is on the coffee table, the room is suggesting, watch me. If your workspace is messy, the room is suggesting, clean me before you start. You might win the argument with your environment once, you might win it 10 times, but the environment never gets tired. It never sleeps. It will keep suggesting the distraction until your willpower battery hits 0, and then, inevitably, you will obey. To win the war of doing hard things, you must stop fighting your surroundings. You must recruit them. You must shape your world so that the hard choice becomes the easy choice, and the easy choice becomes impossible. The physics of behavior. There is a simple equation that governs your life. Behavior is a function of the person times the environment. Most self-help focuses entirely on the person, your motivation, your discipline, your mindset. But that is only half the equation. If the environment is 0, the output is 0. If the environment is negative, you are working against a headwind. The mechanism that controls this equation is friction. Friction is the amount of effort required to execute a behavior. It is measured in seconds and steps. The law of least resistance states that, all else being equal, you will always choose the action that requires the least amount of friction. Right now, your life is likely designed backward. The behaviors you want to avoid, scrolling, watching TV, eating junk, are frictionless. They are one click away. The behaviors you want to encourage, working, training, creating, are high friction. You have to find the file, clear the desk, find your login, and locate your headphones. Your brain is an energy-conserving machine. If it has to choose between a 1-step dopamine hit and a 10-step work session, it will choose the dopamine. Not because you are weak, but because you are efficient. We are going to invert the physics of your life. We are going to grease the slope toward the work and cover the path to distraction with gravel. The cathedral of focus. The first step is to stop working in the same place you play. Your brain relies on context cues to know how to behave. If you sit on the couch to watch Netflix, and then the next day you sit on the same couch to write a business plan, your brain is confused. It is in consumption mode. It is waiting for the entertainment. You are fighting the ghost of your past behavior. You need a single-purpose work zone. This does not mean you need a private office. It means you need a specific configuration of space that screams work. If you have a desk, clear it. Remove everything that is not related to the immediate task. If there is a stack of unpaid bills on the corner, your brain is processing them in the background. That is a leak in your focus. If you work at the kitchen table, that is fine. But when it's time to work, you change the setup. You sit in a different chair. You put on specific headphones. You turn on a specific lamp. You create a cathedral of focus that exists only when you are in the trenches. When you enter this zone, the rules change. No phones, no browsing, no social media. If you need to take a break, you physically leave the zone. You stand up and walk away. You teach your brain that when your butt is in this chair, we are in the business of execution. Over time, the environment itself triggers the focus. You sit down, and the work mode switch flips automatically. The chef's secret. Professional chefs have a practice called mise en place. It means everything in its place. Before they cook a single dish, they chop the onions, measure the spices, and arrange the tools. When the dinner rush hits, they don't have to search for a knife. They just reach out, and it is there. You need to practice mise en place for your life. We call this the ready state. The biggest barrier to starting is the setup. If you have to spend 10 minutes finding your notes and opening the right software, you will likely procrastinate. That 10 minutes is a friction wall. You must never finish a work session without setting the stage for the next one. Before you walk away from your desk, close the tabs you don't need. Open the document you will work on tomorrow. Scroll to the exact place where you will start writing. Leave your notebook open and the pen uncapped. If you exercise in the morning, lay out your clothes the night before. Put your shoes by the door. Fill the water bottle. You are doing a favor for your future self. You are removing the friction of the start. When you wake up tomorrow, you don't have to make a decision. You don't have to find anything. You just have to step into the stream. The environment is already moving. You just have to ride it. Digital barbed wire. Your physical space is important, but your digital space is where the real danger lives. Your laptop and your phone are infinity pools. They contain every movie, every song, every conversation, and every piece of information in human history. And you are trying to ignore all of that to write a memo. It is not a fair fight. You need to put up barbed wire. You need to add friction to the escapes. If you check Instagram reflexively, delete the app from your phone. Make yourself log in through the browser every time. That extra 20 seconds of typing your password is often enough for your prefrontal cortex to wake up and say, "Wait, I don't want to do this." Use site blockers on your computer. Schedule them to run during your focus blocks. If you try to open a distraction, you should be met with a site-blocked wall. This is not about restricting your freedom. It is about protecting your freedom to do what matters. Adopt the two-device rule if you can. Have one device for consumption and one for creation. Your work laptop should be a tool, not a toy. Remove the games. Remove the chat apps. When you open that lid, there should be nothing to do but work. If you can't afford two devices, use two user profiles. Create a work profile on your computer that has 0 distractions installed. When you log into that profile, you are at the office. The panopticon effect. We are social animals. We are wired to care what others think of us. We behave differently when we are being watched. You can use this. You can use social pressure as an environmental constraint. If you struggle to work alone, go to a library or a coffee shop. The presence of other people working creates a social contagion of focus. You feel a subtle pressure to not be the person watching funny cat videos while everyone else is studying. Better yet, create a focus pact. Text a friend, "I am going into the tunnel for 2 hours. I will text you done at 11 a.m. If I don't, I owe you $50. Suddenly, the environment includes a social cost. The friction of not working has just skyrocketed. You are no longer just letting yourself down. You are losing money and face. You can also use temporal anchors. Set a meeting with yourself on the calendar. Treat it as a real appointment. If you had a meeting with your boss, you wouldn't blow it off to scroll Twitter. Why do you blow off meetings with yourself? The architect's trap. As you start shaping your environment, you will feel a surge of power. You will want to buy new organizers, rearrange the furniture, and download 10 different productivity apps. Be careful, this is the architect's trap. It is very easy to use optimizing the environment as a sophisticated form of procrastination. You can spend all day getting your desk ready and do 0 work. This is just another way of hiding. The goal is not a beautiful workspace. The goal is a functional one. Do not spend money, spend thought. Do not add tools, subtract distractions. Start with subtraction. What can you remove from your desk? What apps can you delete? What notifications can you turn off? Subtraction creates focus. Addition creates noise. Also, beware of work creep. If you start answering emails in bed, you have contaminated your sleep environment. If you start working on the couch, you have contaminated your relaxation zone. You must defend the boundaries of your zones. If you blur the lines, you lose the power of the context cue. The invisible current. When you get this right, you stop feeling like you're swimming upstream. You walk into your workspace and the clutter is gone. Your phone is in another room. Your document is already open. Your headphones are right there. The path of least resistance is to sit down and work. You are no longer using your willpower to fight off distractions. You are using your willpower solely for the task at hand. You have outsourced your discipline to your environment. You will find that on days when you feel low energy, the room carries you. You sit in the chair and the habit takes over. The environment acts as an external skeleton, holding you upright when your internal motivation is weak. You have built a fortress of focus. You have designed a life where the default setting is action. But there is one final frontier. We have rewired your reaction to pain. We have mastered the 3-second start. We have scripted your actions. We have engineered your rewards. We have shaped your room. You have all the external tools of a master, but there is one thing that can still sabotage you. It is the voice that speaks when no one else is around. It is the story you tell yourself about who you really are. You can act like a high performer, but if you still see yourself as a procrastinator, you will eventually revert to the mean. You will self-sabotage to align your reality with your self-image. To make this change permanent, we have to go deeper than habits. We have to go deeper than environment. We have to break into the operating system of your identity and rewrite the code that defines you. We need to lock it in. Chapter 8, Identity Lock. You have a thermostat in your head. It is not measuring the temperature of the room. It is measuring the temperature of your success. You have an internal setting, a subconscious baseline of what you believe you deserve and what you believe you are capable of. When your performance drops below this setting, when you have a lazy week, the thermostat kicks in. You feel a surge of panic-induced motivation. You pull an all-nighter, and you scramble back up to your baseline. But here's the dangerous part. The thermostat also works the other way. When you start performing above your setting, when you have a month of incredible focus, when you ship the project, when you start acting like a high performer, the alarm bells go off. Your subconscious mind looks at this new behavior and says, "This isn't us. This is a mistake. We are not this disciplined." So, it cools you down. You self-sabotage. You skip a day, then two. You pick a fight with a partner. You get sick. You find a way to drag yourself back down to the comfortable mediocrity that matches your self-image. This is why diets fail. This is why lottery winners go broke. And this is why, despite all the tools we have discussed, you are at risk of sliding back into your old life. You can have the perfect start routine, the perfect environment, and the perfect rewards. But if your identity is still that of a procrastinator, you will eventually find a way to prove yourself right. You cannot outperform your self-image for long. The gravity of who you think you are is too strong. To make this change permanent, we have to reset the thermostat. We have to break into the operating system of your psyche and rewrite the code that defines you. We need to perform an identity lock. The evidence of you. There is a myth that identity is fixed. You say things like, "I'm just not a morning person," or "I'm a messy person," or "I'm not the kind of person who finishes things." You speak these words as if they were genetic sentences handed down by your ancestors. They are not. They are just stories you have repeated enough times that they feel like facts. But here's the good news. Identity is not based on DNA. It is based on evidence. Imagine you are on trial. The charge is that you are a hard worker. The jury is looking at you, skeptical. You can stand up and give a passionate speech about how ambitious you are. You can recite affirmations in the mirror until you are blue in the face. The jury won't care. They want to see the exhibits. They want proof. If you show them a calendar with 3 months of missed days, they will convict you of being lazy. But if you show them a stack of finished work, a log of daily starts, and a record of difficult things done, they have no choice but to change the verdict. You cannot think your way into a new identity. You have to act your way there. Every time you execute a habit, you are casting a vote for the type of person you want to become. If you write one sentence, you cast a vote for, I am a writer. If you do your MVE workout, you cast a vote for, I am an athlete. If you close the tab and open the work, you cast a vote for, I am a finisher. One vote doesn't win an election, but as the votes accumulate, the weight of the evidence shifts. Eventually, the pile of proof becomes so high that your brain can no longer deny it. You stop having to try to be disciplined. You just are disciplined. It becomes your default state. The proof chain. To build this evidence, we are going to use a mechanism called the proof chain. First, you must choose the trait you're trying to install. Do not try to become a perfect human. That is too vague. Pick a specific, hard-edged trait. I am a finisher. I am a creator. I am reliable. Let's stick with finisher. Next, you define the proof. What is the smallest, undeniable piece of evidence that confirms this trait today? It is your minimum viable effort that we defined in Chapter 5. If you do the MVE, you have generated proof. Finally, and this is the step everyone skips, you must log the proof. You need a ledger. It can be a physical notebook or a digital file, but it must be a permanent record. Every single day, immediately after you do the hard thing, you write it down. October 12, wrote 500 words, proof. October 13, sent the proposal, proof. This act of recording is crucial. It transforms a fleeting action into a permanent asset. It forces your brain to acknowledge the win. When you have a bad day, when the imposter syndrome whispers that you are a fraud, you open the ledger. You look at the last 30 lines. You say, a fraud wouldn't have done this 30 days in a row. The data says I am the real deal. You are building a case file against your own self-doubt. The public standard. Internal proof is powerful, but social proof is unbreakable. We are wired to be consistent with how others perceive us. If everyone thinks you are the reliable one, you will work twice as hard to protect that reputation. We can use this pressure to lock in your identity. You need to establish a public standard. This is a simple, non-negotiable promise you make to the world, or at least to a specific group of peers. It shouldn't be a grand, impossible goal. It should be a standard of behavior. I ship one meaningful piece of work daily. I never miss a Monday deadline. Once you state this standard, you have closed the exit door. If you fail privately, only you know. If you fail publicly, you violate your social contract. That fear is useful. It adds a layer of necessary stress that pushes you through the hesitation gap. Find a peer. Tell them your standard. Then, once a week, show them your ledger. You don't need them to cheer for you. You just need them to witness you. The act of being watched changes the nature of the performance. It turns a chore into a duty. The monthly verdict. Days blur together. It is easy to do the work for 3 weeks and still feel like you haven't changed. To cement the identity, you need to zoom out. Once a month, conduct an identity review. Look at your ledger. Look at your streak calendar. Look at the projects you moved forward. Then, write a verdict. List 3 to 5 specific wins from the month, and then write the sentence that connects them. I wrote every morning this month, therefore I am a writer. I shipped the project despite being sick, therefore I am resilient. You are explicitly naming the traits you have earned. You are taking the raw data of your actions and processing it into the refined gold of self-image. You are telling your brain, look at this. This is who we are now. Adjust the thermostat. The mantra of action. As you go through your day, you need a way to reinforce this in real time. You need a short, punchy mantra that you repeat right after the action. This isn't a soft, I love myself affirmation. This is a statement of fact. When you finish your sprint, close your laptop and say, I finish things. When you choose the work over the distraction, say, I am a pro. You are using a somatic marker, a physical and verbal tag, to label the experience. You are teaching your brain to categorize this action not just as work done, but as identity confirmed. Keep your artifacts visible. Your ledger should be on your desk. Your streak calendar should be on the wall. Your mantra should be on a sticky note. These are not decorations. They are totems. They are constant visual reminders of the person you are becoming. When your old self tries to take the wheel, these artifacts stand in the way. Troubleshooting the ego. As you tamper with your identity, your ego will fight back. It will try to trap you in two specific ways: perfectionism and imposter syndrome. Perfectionism is the enemy of identity change. You will miss a day. It is inevitable. When you do, your old identity will pounce. It will say, see, you missed a day. You aren't a finisher. You're just a fake. You must reject this narrative immediately. A single data point does not ruin a trend. If you miss a day, you don't spiral. You count the very next micro rep as a comeback rep. The comeback rep is worth double. It proves that you are resilient. It proves that you don't quit when things get messy. You frame the failure not as a loss of identity, but as an opportunity to prove a deeper layer of toughness. Then there is the imposter spike. As you start succeeding, you might feel a sudden wave of fraudulence. Who am I to be doing this? I'm just pretending. When this happens, stop feeling and start reading. Open your ledger. Read the last 10 entries out loud. Facts do not care about your feelings. You cannot argue with the ink on the page. You are not a fraud. You are just a person who is finally doing the work, and it feels unfamiliar. That unfamiliarity is not danger. It is growth. The plateau of ease. Eventually, a strange thing will happen. The work will stop feeling hard. You will do your MVE, run your script, and finish your task without a spike of adrenaline. It will feel normal. This is the danger zone of the plateau. When the work becomes too easy, you stop earning identity points. If you lift the same weight for 5 years, you don't get stronger. When you feel this ease, you must gently raise the stakes. Increase the MVE by 1%. Tighten the deadline. Add a new constraint. You need to keep the challenge just slightly above your comfort zone to keep the identity engine running. You want to feel a tiny bit of resistance, just enough to remind you that you are overcoming something. But be careful of identity whiplash. Do not try to become a gym-going polyglot CEO monk all in the same month. You will crash. Pick one trait, lock it in for 30 days, let the cement dry. Only then do you add the next layer. The inevitable you. When you execute this process, proof chain, public standard, monthly review, you reach a state of inevitability. This is the holy grail. Inevitability is when the question, will I do the work today, disappears. It is replaced by the assumption of action. You don't negotiate with yourself about brushing your teeth. You just do it because you are a person who has teeth. When your identity locks, hard work becomes hygiene. It becomes just another thing you do, like breathing or sleeping. You stop needing heroic willpower because you are simply acting in alignment with your own self-image. The friction is gone, the ceiling is raised, the thermostat is reset to a new normal, where hard is just Tuesday. You have built the machine, you have the mindset, the start, the system, the reward, the environment, and the identity. You are now a fully functional operator. But a machine is only useful if it runs forever. We have covered a lot of ground. We have dismantled your old habits and built new ones. But life is long, and entropy is relentless. How do you ensure that this system doesn't just work for a week, but for a lifetime? How do you connect all these separate levers into a single self-perpetuating flywheel that gets faster and stronger the longer you run it? We need to integrate. We need to take these 8 chapters and forge them into a single protocol that you can execute in your sleep. It's time to look at the relentless next. Chapter 9, Relentless Next. You have reached the end of the manual. In a moment, you will close this book. And in that moment, you will face the most dangerous point in the entire process of personal change. There is a phenomenon known as the reader's high. It is that warm, satisfied feeling you get when you finish a book about self-improvement. You feel smarter, you feel capable, you feel like a new person, but you haven't actually done anything yet. You have simply consumed information about doing things. Your brain is currently trying to trick you one last time. It is trying to convince you that reading about the work is the same as doing the work. It is trying to count this intellectual journey as a physical victory. It is not. Unless you move, this book is just a souvenir. It is just dead trees and ink, or pixels on a screen. The system we have built together is not a philosophy to be admired. It is a machine to be operated, and a machine that sits in the garage gathering dust is worthless. We are going to take everything we have learned, the mindset, the countdowns, the scripts, the rewards, and we are going to weld them together into a single, unbreakable flywheel. We are going to turn "Do It Anyway" from a title into a reflex. The flywheel of action. You don't need to memorize 7 different chapters. You just need to understand the loop. Think of this system as a circular chain of events. Every time you run the loop, the next loop becomes easier. The friction drops, the speed increases. Here is what the perfect rep looks like in the real world. It starts with a sensation. You feel the resistance. You feel that familiar tightening in your chest or that urge to pick up your phone. Instead of panicking, you recognize it. You label it. There is the alarm. You cap the reframe at 10 seconds. You tell yourself, this is tuition, not trauma. Immediately, you trigger the launch. You don't negotiate. You exhale. You count. 3, 2, 1. On 1, you execute the micro motion. You open the laptop. You put on the shoes. You do not think about the mountain. You only think about the first step. Once you are moving, the script takes over. You are in your cathedral of focus. Your phone is blocked. Your environment is shaped to keep you in the channel. You know exactly what to do because you defined the default next action yesterday. There is no decision fatigue because there are no decisions to make. You hit the minimum viable effort floor. You do the 2 minutes, you chain it into 8, you do the work. When you stop, you don't just walk away. You close the loop. You log the win in your ledger. You cast a vote for your identity. You say, I am a finisher. You give yourself the immediate reward, the check mark, the stretch, the sensory treat. You feel the dopamine hit. And finally, you set the stage for tomorrow. You clear the desk. You write the next DNA. You leave the machine in the ready state. That is 1 rep. It sounds like a lot of steps, but in practice, it takes seconds. It is a fluid motion. Reframe, launch, script, work, reward, log, reset. The first time you spin this flywheel, it will feel heavy. You will have to push hard. But the second time, it will carry a little bit of its own momentum. The 100th time, it will be spinning so fast that it will pull you along with it. The death of moods. The greatest lie of the amateur is that you are a slave to your moods. You wake up feeling tired or anxious or just not feeling it, and you assume that this emotional weather report is a command from God. You assume that because you feel low, your output must be low. This system gives you a different truth. You own the levers, not the moods. When you have a mechanical process for generating momentum, your internal state becomes irrelevant. You can be tired and still count to 1. You can be anxious and still execute a script. You can be uninspired and still hit your minimum viable effort. This is the ultimate empowerment. It means you are no longer waiting for the stars to align. You can create momentum on command. You can manufacture motivation out of thin air by simply engaging the gears of the machine. You stop asking, do I want to do this, and start asking, what is the next step? The first question is a trap. The second is a key. The ripple effect. As you run this loop, something shifts in the way the world sees you. Reliability is a rare currency. Most people are inconsistent. They promise big and deliver small. They are enthusiastic on Monday and absent on Wednesday. When you become a person who acts regardless of how they feel, you become a stabilizing force. Your boss, your partners, your family, they start to realize that you are a constant in a chaotic world. Trust is not built on grand gestures. It is built on the boring, repetitive act of doing what you said you would do. When you keep your promises to yourself, by logging your daily proof, you automatically become better at keeping promises to others. You bring energy to the room, not excuses. While everyone else is explaining why the project is late, you are shipping it. While everyone else is complaining about the difficulty, you are reframing it as growth. You become the person others depend on, not because you are smarter, but because you are the one who is actually moving. You raise the standard for everyone around you. Your consistency challenges them. It shows them what is possible. You don't have to preach to them. You just have to operate. Your results will do the preaching. Deep work without drama. What does life look like when you master this? It looks calm. Right now, your work life is likely filled with drama. The drama of procrastination, the drama of the last-minute panic, the drama of guilt and shame. It is exhausting. When you apply the relentless next, the drama evaporates. You have daily deep work blocks, but they aren't heroic struggles. They are just part of the routine. You finish projects on schedule, not because you pulled an all-nighter, but because you chipped away at them every single day. You develop a quiet confidence. When a crisis hits, you don't spiral. You revert to your training. You ask, what is the MVE? What is the next action? You break the catastrophe down into a script and you execute. You recover faster. Setbacks don't define you because your identity is not based on outcomes. It is based on the fact that you show up. If you fail, you just log it, reset the room, and count down 3, 2, 1 again. The physics of ease. I want to promise you something. It will not always be this hard. Right now, you are fighting against years of neural wiring that favors comfort. You are pushing a boulder up a hill, but every time you run the loop, you are rewiring your brain. Automaticity is real. There will come a day, sooner than you think, where it will actually be harder to skip the work than to do it. Your brain will crave the dopamine of the completion tick. Your body will itch for the workout. Your mind will feel cluttered until you have done your writing. The environment you have shaped will carry the load. You won't have to decide to work. The room will decide for you. Your identity will stabilize. You will simply be a doer. This is the goal. Not a life of constant grinding struggle, but a life of high performance that flows naturally from who you are. You save your energy for the quality of the work, not the starting of it. The first move. So, here we are, the end of the book, the beginning of the work. You have a choice. You can put this book on the shelf, feel good about yourself for a few hours, and go back to your old life. You can let the hesitation gap swallow you whole. Or you can prove to yourself right now that you are different. You don't need a new life. You don't need a new year. You just need a new start. And you need to repeat that start over and over again until it becomes who you are. I want you to do one thing, not tomorrow, not in 5 minutes, right now. Pick one task that you have been avoiding, just one. Write down the default next action. Make it a microverb. Open the email. Put on the shoes. Stand up, exhale, count, 3, 2, go. Do not wait for the feeling. The feeling is not coming. The feeling is a liar. Begin today. Begin small. Begin relentlessly. 1 rep is a vote. Cast it now. The rest is just math. If you keep starting, you will finish. If you keep finishing, you will win. The book is done. The work is waiting. Do it anyway.